Mindset is everything in this business and sales world, and whatever is going on in your personal life, whatever might have you down that day, when you get in front of that client, you are truly like an actress in a way, actress or actor, because you are there. You're not that you're putting on a show, but you are giving your client the best of you. And so that means a smile, that means being accommodating, regardless of what they're saying, regardless of what's going on in your life. So mindset, always making sure to have the right mindset. And those were things early on that were a challenge for me.
Hey everybody, I am Raul Gonzalez.
And I'm Oscar Ibieta.
And we are Medicare Agent IQ with a special guest with us today, Mrs. Natalie Gamez. And Natalie she's one of our agents that's been with us for about 7 years, and one of our top producers for all 7 years. And so, Natalie, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Super excited. Honored. Yeah. So I wanted to kind of give a little bit of a background where you started, and then how we ended up where we're at today. And so let's take it back, but what is it, seven years? And when I first met you, I remember you mentioned that I didn't answer your call, or I declined your call.
Right, you declined me several times in a row. This is back in the day when you couldn't, do it otherwise.
So the story behind that real quick is I had no idea that, this is showing my age here. I had no idea that when you hit the off button, that I thought if you hit it twice, it declined. If you hit it once, it just silenced it. But it turns out I was wrong. So the whole time she knew I was declining her.
Right. Just thought you weren't interested.
And you thought you were silencing it.
So it almost never happened. But what were you doing during that time? What was kind of the background at that point?
Yeah, I come from a final expense world, so 100% sales. And I'd heard a lot about Medicare, and I wanted to see what these renewals were all about.
Hey, real quick, how long did you do final expense before you made that move?
So it was about 4 years. 4 years, and then the first year I got into the business, I did mortgage protection and life insurance, but transitioned to working with the senior market and final expense just a few years in.
Okay, and then so a couple years in, what made you decide that you even wanted to look at doing Medicare?
So when I would visit my clients in the home, they would ask me, what about this A, B, Medicare? And I had no idea what they were talking about. It might as well have been a foreign language. And so the more I heard about it, the more I started thinking that there might be an opportunity here. And I did a little bit of research, talked to a good friend of mine, and she told me about a little something called renewals.
Yeah.
And I was all ears, because I knew I wanted to start a family.
Right.
And I love the life insurance world, final expense, some great clients. But the great thing is that we have those same customers here in the Medicare world. And so I knew I wasn't afraid of hard work, but I also wanted to be paid in the future on that hard work.
Yeah. And so when you made that transition, we did some training, some very quick training, right? I think we were just about to have my second baby.
Yes.
I was like, I'm going to do the best I can. Here we go. And in my head, I kind of paused it. And I thought, okay, well, we'll just catch up, and she'll continue to do her final expense while I go and kind of get acquainted with our new baby coming in. And then
that was not in my head.
Yeah. You called me from the hospital?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was in the hospital. You called and you're like, hey, I'm running this appointment, and you had some questions, and I was like, you got to stop.
Yeah.
Just go ahead.
Slow your roll.
Yeah.
But I was just ready to get started. Part of my sales background just tells you jump right in, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. So I made plenty of them early on, but you were there to guide me along the way, so thank you for that.
But I think that's should be a big takeaway for people. A lot of people get timid, and they're like, oh man, unless I know every single thing, I can't get out there.
Right.
And Natalie, one of the top producers that I know, jumps right in and says, you know what, I'm gonna get out there. I'm gonna make this happen. And so of course during that time we got you another friend, Oscar here.
That's
and
right.
he went along with you and was able to kind of help give you some more coaching while I was gone, right?
Well, first of all, he took me out for tacos.
Yeah.
So I knew it was going to be a great friendship from the beginning. But yeah, I mean, it's all about teamwork. And Oscar, I remember you taking me out, and We ran several appointments, and seemed just very relaxed, a very relaxed environment. It didn't seem salesy at all.
Yeah.
Whereas from the life insurance background, it is a little bit more, you're in the trenches, and it is very sales oriented. So I really liked what I saw.
Okay. What would you say has been the key to your success in Medicare?
Not being afraid to make mistakes. Yeah, not being afraid to make mistakes, and getting out of my way.
Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of us in sales, we are our own worst enemy, and we're afraid to make mistakes. We're afraid to get the no, just fear. So just getting out of my way and saying we're just going to go all in here. And part of success is those failures, and I've had plenty of them. But
let's talk about them. I'm curious what kind of failures you're referring to when you say not being afraid to fail. What kind of failures? Oh my gosh!
I mean, I know I've walked out of homes, and I can tell you the stories. Walking out of those homes, just crying in my car because I gave too many options, because I didn't position myself correctly. I didn't lean on the daughter that would have been my right-hand man there. But, all the mistakes that were made just gave me those experiences so that the next time I didn't make those same mistakes. So those are just some of them, but I've got plenty of stories I can tell you.
Yeah, I mean, and just to piggyback off of your answer, I think that's, you weren't afraid to make mistakes. There's a saying, right? Paralyzation by inaction. I think Raul was just talking about that. A lot of times agents are just afraid to get out there and say, well, I don't feel comfortable getting out there. I don't know everything. And the reality is it's going to take a while before you start to figure this thing out.
And then even then, you're still not going to know everything because the plans change, the rules change. There's so much to it. So you just have to be open to change and embrace that change.
Yeah. Because even today we have questions, and we're constantly talking to each other, asking questions when we end up in a situation where maybe we don't have the answer, and we start to rely on each other for that. But I'd say that's a huge key piece to your success, is because, and I see that in some of the agents that join us. I see some agents that are afraid to get out there, and then there are other agents where they're getting out there, and we're kind of having to like, hey, let's take it back, let's do some relearning now. We will say, right, to our audience, it's not like Natalie knew nothing about Medicare and just went out there and started getting into homes. There was some training, and there were some things, a lot of the basics that we went through, and then she got out there. But even then, when you've gone through the basics, there's still a lot of learning to do. But big part of your success was you went out there and did it, and you weren't afraid to make mistakes. So if you're trying to figure out what the key to success is, that's a big part of it.
Absolutely, and just not making those excuses. Even just physically getting out there, at time we have the excuses of, well, I have to go wash my car, or I need to do this or do that, and just you get in your own way. Just get out there. Just go make some sales. Whatever comes of it, you will have success at the end of the day if you keep putting the work.
What does that look like? What does just getting out there actually look like? So obviously you had kind of, I would say maybe a leg up on being that you had a final expense book.
Right.
So first of all, let's talk a little bit about that, because there might be agents that are listening that are in the final expense world. We're like, well, what would I do? So what was the first thing that you started to do?
I called my current clients.
Right.
Got in front of them.
So you actually picked up the phone.
Yep, absolutely.
It's funny that you say that, and I just want to pause there for a second. A lot of times when I'm talking to agents that are making that transition, the first thing they'll ask me is, "Hey, can you send a mailer?" And how much more effective? And I'm sure at some point we sent out a mailer to your book, but how much more effective is picking up the phone and calling your clients?
Yeah, I mean, we already have those relationships with those clients, so you're just calling, checking on them, because truly you are checking on them. How are they doing with their life insurance? Getting in front of them. Talking about just in general the portfolio, and a lot of times they need help with their Medicare health insurance.
Right. So tell me about that conversation. Would you'd pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I started doing this now," or? Yeah.
I would just pick up the phone and say, "How's everything going? Haven't talked to you in a while. Just wanted to check on you. How's everything going with your life insurance? Okay, great. Also, I don't know if you know this, but I help out with Medicare health insurance as well. Just like I'm a broker on the life insurance side, I offer options for the Medicare health insurance. How's everything going with your Medicare health insurance?"
Okay, and then their response is everything is fine?
Great. Which plan do you have? Tell me what do you like about your plan?
So
and it depends.
Stop there.
Some agents will just kind of shut down, right?
Right. And so just anything to kind of get me in the door again to visit with them, because when you sit in front of a client, or depending on if you're doing sales, just opening up the conversation. Maybe you're doing telesales, and that's okay too. But you just have to keep asking those questions.
Okay.
You didn't stop. That's the thing, because somebody says, "Oh, I'm doing great," and I've had those conversations with agents. They just say, "Well, they said they were good, so I just left it alone." But you went past that. What plan do you have? What do you love about it? Are you getting the most out of your benefits? I would love to schedule a courtesy plan review. Let's just sit down and look at your plan, see what those benefits look like, and see if there are any other options that would be a good fit for you. I think that's the key. So when you were calling, you mentioned earlier you started with mortgage protection and life insurance, and then you transitioned into final expense. Did you reach out to all, or I mean, obviously you probably targeted your senior population first, but what did that call campaign look like? I mean, if somebody's listening and they're trying to figure out how did she actually execute this, did you have a CRM that you you ran reports on?
We definitely did. We went based off age, but then to be honest, a lot of our Medicare health insurance clients are younger as well. So really just reaching out to any and all people is a great idea. In terms of clients and their age, I wouldn't let that stop you. You can visit a 30-year-old, and that 30-year-old has parents or in-laws that they live with that may have Medicare health insurance.
So you would still call, so when you made this transition, and let's talk about that for a minute. So when you first started, it wasn't a transition necessarily. It was something you were wanting to add to what you did, right? You weren't saying, okay, I'm out of here. I'm done with final expense. Let's do Medicare. But that did happen at some point, right?
It did.
Okay.
It did. Probably sooner than I thought I would have. But yes, it was a matter of just balancing it out for the first, several months.
Yeah, is that at what point in that journey did you say, you know what, I'm and again, you're not done, like someone calls you right now, you're going to do final expense, right? But what was the point where you knew and you kind of felt confident that, okay, you know what, this Medicare thing is going to work out. This is the direction that I want to go. Yeah,
it was several months in, but I remember just there got to a point where I thought, I can continue making final expense sales, but that won't help me in the future. And if I continue adding to this little egg right here, then with the Medicare health insurance, I will get more and more renewals. So it was several months in, but I remember there being a point where it shifted.
I remember walking into your office once, and you had on the board, you were like, this is how many clients I need to get me to X amount of residuals in January. And so that's the goal that you set for yourself. And you kind of, you did understand, right? We're playing the long game here. And I think that's a struggle that a lot of life insurance agents may have, is they're used to making these big commissions, and in 1 hour they can make a commission of probably a couple grand pretty easily, versus with Medicare we know that the commissions are just a fraction of that. But you understood, all right, we're playing the long game here, and I'm working towards building the residual. But I think that's a great thing, is how you set that goal on the whiteboard, and it was like, this is how many clients that I need for when for come January, these are the residuals.
Because look, in the beginning it's not rainbows and butterflies. I still remember I have a picture of that same whiteboard, and it's almost laughable now because my goal was a pretty low goal, but we met that goal, and then we had the next goal and the next goal and the next goal. So now I'm 4 goals in. But you have to start with somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think so. Again, if you're just trying to figure out what does that transition look like, it's not rainbows and butterflies. It's not just the flip of a switch where you just turn to it. But I think understanding, knowing that, hey, you're gonna there is some quote unquote sacrifice in your upfront commissions, but you're building your residual income.
How married were you to those goals? Because I know that we would talk about them back then, but did those numbers kind of stay on the top of your mind at all times? Were you like, I gotta do this? Is that?
Yeah, very much so goal oriented, and just remembering at the end of the day what I'm doing this for, because you have a day, and I had one recently where it was like 7 or 8 no's in one day. You don't come across that often.
Yeah, it happens though.
Not Natalie Gamez, but it happens. And so if you think long term rather than short term, then it at least for me it was easier.
Okay.
So sticking to those goals.
How do you deal with the no's? Because I think everyone it doesn't feel good being told no. It never feels good. And so I've had those days, and I just remember just shutting down and just being like, am I in the right business? What am I
It's the
doing
end of the
here?
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I remember for me early on in my sales career, I learned about a black soul. A black soul meaning you're not too high, you're not too low. So even on those days where I have 7 or 8 sales, it's just another day. So just being very, trying to be as, trying to show as little emotion as possible.
You're not riding the roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Because man, that roller coaster, it's a lot of fun going down it, but climbing up that mountain it can be challenging at times. So just staying even keel about it
that's great.
was my the key to my success in terms of my mindset.
Yeah, you don't tie your success or measure your success based off of that day and the amount of sales, whether good or bad, how well you did. It's overall in the kind of you judge the art. The full work of art, not necessarily that one.
Right, because if I had 7 or 8 no's that day, well then imagine I'm putting in a lot of work, and for the month I had a lot more to show than just those 7 or 8 no's.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hey, what are some challenges that you have faced in this field? Like, what would you say kind of the biggest challenges that you've faced just in the whole journey?
Yeah, well, you have to be self-motivated and disciplined, and that didn't come overnight for me. I came from an athletic background, but then when you are in a position of being your own boss and not really having somebody hold you accountable, there has to be some sacrifices and some self-discipline. So early on, I was very young, so I think the freedom, but you don't work, you don't eat. So I think early on that was a challenge. But then I had kids, so that that was no longer an option. And then, mindset, that was huge. Mindset is everything in this business and sales world, and whatever is going on in your personal life, whatever might have you down that day when you get in front of that client, you are truly like an actress in a way, actress or actor, because you are there. You're not that you're putting on a show, but you are giving your client the best of you. And so that means a smile, that means being accommodating, regardless of what they're saying, regardless of what's going on in your life. So mindset, always making sure to have the right mindset. And those were things early on that were a challenge for me.
Okay.
Discipline's big. I can relate to that. I feel the same way when I first got into it. Young, right? We're in our 20s. So if anyone's getting in the business, you're in your 20s and 30s. When I first got into the business, I was a kid. I mean, everybody who was doing Medicare, it felt like they were in their 50s at least. And so they'd see me show up and they're like, okay, well, who's this kid, right? And so the one thing that they tell me is, I wish I was your age when I started doing this, but looking back at my journey, I really wish that I would have actually been more self-disciplined, because it's like, where could I be now had I had the discipline to show up every day and put in the work? But I'd have those highs, I'd have those great days, and then I'd take the rest of the week off, because it was like, I know I met my goal for the week. So anyone who's getting into the business, you're younger, try and make sure that you maintain that self-discipline. I think it's a big key to the success.
Because you are your own boss at that point. Yeah. And so many people don't like the boss. Why? Because the boss stays on top of you, holds you accountable. So you have to hold yourself accountable and make sure that you remember those goals and stick to them, because they matter.
Yep. Absolutely. How do you keep up to date? So Oscar and I, we talked about last week about how things are just changing all the time. They're at every point we're seeing changes in Medicare. How have you managed to kind of keep up with those changes and the rule changes and all of those things, and still manage to grow your book and focus on that?
Yeah, we are pack animals. We have to stick with the pack. And so I believe in teamwork and working as a group of individuals. So to answer your question, I show up for the team meetings, whether they're in person or virtual. You have that camaraderie in the group, because maybe you miss something, you miss an email, but you know that your cohort's going to have your back. So just staying up to date by a meeting of the minds, if you will. So definitely here in our agency, it's about showing up to the meetings and being part of the group.
So if you have like an opportunity, let's just say, there's agents everywhere, right? And maybe they don't have a group like you had in San Antonio. Are there other places that you could do that? Maybe a Facebook group. I'm trying to just kind of think out loud.
Facebook group, social media, absolutely. But the insurance companies that we represent nationwide. They have seminars, they have meetings daily, and so often we get the email, oh yeah, I know, and you just erase it,
Right.
or you look past it. But I'm telling you, up to today, I'm still logging in and getting key pieces of information from those groups. So I think it's important just to always be plugged in and be a student of the game.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense. So you're keeping up with those things. When you how's your organization? I'm curious about, because I know that we've talked. I'm not the most organized individual. Like that's a struggle of mine. Are you? Would you say you're pretty organized in your sales?
Well, depending on who you ask. But yes, when it comes to our book of business, every client that visits us, that we sell, even the ones that we don't, we are logging their information into the CRM. So I know name, date of birth, address, of all contact information, because they're all leads at the end of the day, and you don't want to miss those opportunities to help those clients out. So yeah, absolutely. I think I'm organized in my own way. When it matters per dollar, I am definitely organized.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So how do you build and maintain strong relationships with those clients? What are you doing that would you say maybe it's different the way that I do things? How does a Natalie Gamez client feel different than an Oscar? No, how does Natalie Gamez client feel different? Can you tell me a little?
Yeah, I think it's relationships in general. So whether you're married, you're in a partnership, what are you doing? You're watering, the plant always. You're touching base. You're loving on them. You're hugging them, and you can still do that from a distance over the phone. So when my clients call in, I can guarantee they're going to have impeccable customer service. They're going to get follow-ups. After we make a sale, they're going to get a call the day of, either the first or maybe a few days before, letting them know their plan's going to change. Have you gotten your card?
You always do.
Right,
do that.
exactly. So we are always touching base with our clients. So giving them that TLC, just like you would, in your partnership and your love life. You have to treat these clients with respect and love, and as if you were helping out your family member, your parents or your grandparent. How would you treat them? That's how I treat my clients.
Yeah, I always tell people that too. Like, you got to treat people the way you would your own grandparent or your own parent, because
maybe that's where I got it from.
I have influenced people in this room. I will say that.
We're your babies.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share kind of a success story where your advice made a significant difference to a client? Maybe even in kind of thinking about where maybe, how you get that call when they say, "Man, I want to get on that United plan," and then you start getting to know them a little bit, and you're like, "Man, that might not make the most sense for you," and you can make a recommendation. Any kind of success stories that you have where you've made a real impact in a client's life?
Yeah, I can think of several, because sometimes it's not about it's never about only making the sale, but sometimes you visit a client in their home and you realize, I can't really help you. But just by, keeping them on the same plan and helping them order their over-the-counter or connecting them with a dentist, I'm going to leave that client's house, and whether I get a sale or not, I'm going to help them.
Right.
And so oftentimes what we see is that they will refer you out even though you're not their current client. So sometimes I'll ask somebody, I'll ask the client, how did you hear about me? And they'll, share the name of the client. And I realized that actually was not a client, but it was somebody that I just helped along the way, that I visited with them, kept them on their same plan. And, they felt comfortable with me enough to refer me out to their friends and family. So that's happened before. I've had other instances where a client, didn't realize that they had Medicaid, but they, just with a little bit of help, they didn't ever have anybody to sit down and show them how to apply for state benefits. So help them do that. And now we've got them on a completely different plan where it's zero out-of-pocket costs, where before they were paying $20. And somebody who has low income, $20 is a lot of money. So just going the extra mile. But those are the two clients I can think of in general.
Yeah. Would you always help people apply for Medicaid, or tell me what?
Right. I would either help them myself or send them to the department that helps them.
Like from a provider group?
Right, a provider group that we work with one-on-one. They know me, I know them, somebody that I can trust. But oftentimes we do it on our own in office.
Yeah, I was going to say, so if you had somebody and you were in a market, because remember, all markets are different. So like there could be someone out, and especially if you live like in a small town, There's probably, they don't have that same kind of presence from a provider group. So if you could, you would do it yourself and help them apply for Medicaid.
Yeah, I just had a client the other day, and it sounded like she could qualify for extra help here in Texas for the medications, and I helped her with it. And what was funny is that, you know, I ended up being able to help her with her plan. I didn't think I could early on because of the circumstances, but in the end, it resulted in a sale, which was not the intention for this particular client, but it worked out that way. So as long as you're doing the right thing for the client always, good things will come your way.
I got a question for you. What's your commission on helping someone fill out the Medicaid application?
Free.
We don't get paid on that, folks. So we don't get paid, but that's part of your customer service. You're going above and beyond, and you're helping these people apply for this. And I want to backtrack a little bit on what you said. So you mentioned earlier in one of your success stories, right? You help connect them with a dentist, and you've actually built relationships and created relationships with dentists over the years that you've been doing Medicare, which is another piece of your success. But even though in that moment you didn't make a sale, there was no plan change where you're going to get paid on that, but you connected them with one of your dentists, and so it's still a win for your dentist, right? You looked for a victory within that, and you said, hey, I'm going to connect you with my dentist. Go and see this great partner, this dentist that I work with. And so in the eyes of the dentist, Natalie just sent them a piece of business. Yeah. And so who are they going to think of next when somebody goes in there where they're struggling to pay their dental benefits, or they need to sign up for something? They've got Medicare, they've got to sign up for something. Who are they going to call? Right? So that referral is going to come to you. So even though no sale was made there, it still helps your relationship with the dentist, and they're going to think of you next time there's an opportunity.
Exactly. It's all about reciprocity, right? I scratch their back, they scratch mine. And the dentist at the end of the day doesn't care if it's your client or not.
Right.
That client has benefits. They want to see that client as their patient. So I absolutely think that helped me along the way establish those and keep those strong relationships for the dentist.
So you got some good working relationships with some dentists. How do you maintain those relationships? Because one thing that we see, we're always encouraging agents to get out there and build relationships and network so that way they can send business over to you. They get out there and they may touch them once, and they may go and talk to that doctor. They may go and talk to that dentist one time, and then just expect the gates to just open and they get flooded with referrals. What's the reality of that?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? How has that process actually played out for you?
Yeah, the reality is that there have been several agents that go in there and talk a big game and don't follow up. So how can we be different? And that means annually going in there to review the benefits ahead of time. So in December, when everybody's quiet and it's the off season, I'm going into those dentist offices and saying, this is what the plans look like for next year. So you're aware, so that you're not bombarded by, all these patients who say, I have this new plan and it covers this and it covers that, January 1st. Not only that, but lunch and learns, going in there on a quarterly basis, stopping by and, of course it's always nice to receive gifts, but maybe you just stop in and share, give them more business cards, but always finding an excuse just to say hi. They will never say, what are you doing here? Why are you here? You just want to always make sure to stop in, give them a call, follow up. You may have a certain way of how you share the information with the dentist, but always following up with them in person or on the phone and saying, did you receive this client, the information? And then from there, did you schedule an appointment? Were you able to get a hold of them? And just being there to help them out, because at the end of the day, you want them to see more patients.
But you're so busy, Nat. You're out there writing business and you've got things to do. How are you? You're not too busy to stop in at these dental offices, and a lot of times agents get caught up in making that next sale, and they're looking for that next transaction. But truth is, this is a part of your business, and you understand, hey, I've got to stop in and I've got to talk to these providers that I have relationships with, and it's you make that just as much of a priority as you do meeting with your clients. And I think that's a big piece. That's a big key to finding success in this business.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's an investment, and I know it'll pay off.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of agents, they miss the fact that it's an investment. And we talk to agents all the time. We're like, man, you got to go out there and create relationships with dentists and doctors. And out of most agents that I've known, you're the one that seems to follow all the advice, all the things that we talk about on this podcast. You've done all of those things, and that's been a big part of your strategy, I would say. And I think that's another thing, another key to success would be take other people's advice who have been there longer, right? That have done this before. And even if you turn it into your own, and in no way did I teach you how to have a relationship with the dentist, but kind of I would encourage, hey, get out there and create some relationships with dentists, and then you made it your own thing and you took off. And I'd be like, man, Natalie needs to be teaching how to create these relationships. And I love that you've been able to you do all the things that leaders in the industry recommend. And there's a lot of agents who don't. A lot of agents will just do one thing. They'll jump in and then they'll see that it didn't work that first time. Did the very first dentist that you ever went to?
Well, it's funny. I was just about to mention that just because I've done this 100 times before doesn't mean that it's any easier in the very beginning. When you first visit those dentist office, it can be a little overwhelming. They're all staring at you. They don't know what you're talking about. And it's good to go in there with a partner. And you are my partner, so thank you for that. I remember you went in there with me and I got stumped and I said, bro, help. So, and then that's where you came in, because in the moment, sometimes, it's uncomfortable or you just kind of get stuck. But it's good to have somebody there for moral support, or oftentimes just say, oh, and by the way, Oscar, did you tell him that you could bring him lunch? That type of thing to work together. And then after that, it seemed pretty seamless. But just getting over that first hump, the first hurdle, the visit, it is, again, getting out of your way and not letting fear keep you from just jumping right in.
Yeah, and just kind of like you talk about, we're pack animals, right? We want to, we go with other people, and there's strength in numbers, and you feel even more confident when you get out there and we go together. Even if I don't say anything the whole time, there's something about having your friend right by your side kind of helping you out with that. So listen, here's what we're going to go ahead and do. So we are going to wrap up for today, but next week we're going to just kind of do the same thing. And I got some cool things. What we'll do is some role play where I'm the customer, Oscar's the customer, and how do you respond in kind of difficult things? How do you turn things that we would think wouldn't be a sell into a sell? So we're excited to do that for next week's episode. So until then, everybody, remember that you can also follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, right, on YouTube, pretty much anywhere that you get content. We'd love to have you as a follower for you to engage. If you have questions for Natalie is a friend of ours, and we probably have her back on. So if you have questions that you would say, hey, I would rather hear from Natalie. She knows more than y'all. then feel free to let us know any questions that you have. We'll be glad to answer them. So until next time.